Shalom, peace. We have so far dealt with 3 wisdom books. Today we are going to deal with 2 more wisdom books, namely the book of Job and the book of Ben Sira. The book of Job is an anti-conventional wisdom. It is challenging the conventional wisdom. Whereas the book of Ben Sira is conventional wisdom, is trying to show how tradition has something to offer to us as we live our daily life. The theme that the book of Job deals with is undeserved suffering. The word undeserved is already having some nuance, namely innocent suffering. Person does not deserve and still the person suffers. That means there is some theology which is challenged. We shall see this in the course of this session. Suffering. The world suffers for 4 reasons. The first reason is the nature is incomplete and therefore natural calamities make the person suffer. Secondly, human being is incomplete and therefore human beings suffer. Thirdly, human mind is incomplete. It cannot grasp everything properly, therefore human persons suffer. And fourth is called noble suffering. Suffering for something noble in life. That a soldier working on the borders of a country definitely suffers, but the entire country is protected. Or a father works abroad, toils day and night, but the future of the children is brightened. Jesus' suffering is salvific or redemptive suffering. That should give us a clue into the understanding of suffering. The book of Job has 2 literary styles. First is prose and the other one is poetry. It begins with the narration about Job's life and ends with again the restoration of Job. In between is the section called dialogue, which is in poetry form. Characters in Job. There are 7 characters in the book of Job. The first character is God. God is omnipresent. He knows everything. He is omniscient. He is present everything. He knows everything. And he is omnipotent. He is all powerful. And therefore, this God is the main character of this book. Contrary to God's creative action, the second character is Satan, destructive agent as if. But this book does not really present him as a destructive agent. He is a divine agent of punishment with the purpose of purification. That means God can allow evil to take place because he is capable of turning the evil into good. So Satan is part of the divine assembly and he is the devil's advocate, member of the household of God, but he has limited power. Every time he is asking for some power, God is giving him some limited power. So the evil may be there in our life, but we do not have to be worried. The word Satan appears in the entire Old Testament only 69 times, in contrast to the word Yahweh, which appears for 6,800 times. That means the power of Yahweh is 1,000 times more than the power of the evil one. The third character is Job himself. There are 3 stages of his life. First is the patient Job, a righteous Job. Secondly, a tested Job. So he becomes impatient. And thirdly, a restored Job. So he is restored again. And all these 3 phases of Job's life we can see. The word Job has its origin in the Hebrew word Oeb, which is very close, or Eob, which is very close to the word Oeb. Oeb means enemy. Job thinks that God is treating me like an enemy. The fourth character is the messengers of Job. 4 messengers will bring bad news for him. First of all, cattle and servants are attacked. The second messenger will come and say, sheep and servants are attacked, are fallen into fire, or camels and servants are raided. Finally, sons and daughters who were having food in your brother's house are destroyed because there was a strong wind and the entire house fell upon them. So they are bringing only bad news, the messengers of Job. Then the fifth character is the wife of Job. She stands for skepticism. She doubts. Why are you believing in God? See what God has done to you. So she confronts Job for his belief in God and suggests him to curse God. Then three friends of Job, that is Eliphaz, Bildad and Zophar, they are coming from far places. They are not simply friends. They are friends because they are sitting with him for 7 days in silence. But after 7 days, they begin to talk like theologians. They have a particular theology to present, which we shall see very soon. The seventh character is Elihu, the fourth friend who is brought in to support these three friends. So the contents of this book of Job. The prologue, chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 2, verse 10. In this there are 5 scenes and they alternate between heaven and earth. The first scene begins on earth, where there is a narration about this rich man, this righteous man, this upright man from a place called Uz, which is in Edom, and about his life. So this is a scene taking place on the earth. This person is not a Jew, he is coming from outside Jew, because wisdom is a universal phenomenon. So first scene will be on the earth. The second scene will be in heaven, that Satan will appear before God and say, and then God asks him, where were you? And he said, I went around on the whole earth. Satan is not stable in one place. He is always moving about because he is always disturbed and he will be always disturbing. So he comes and even challenges God. You are talking about your servant Job, but you just touch his body and see what happens. He will curse you. And you take away all his property and see what happens. So God gives him the permission. So the third scene is destruction of the property of Job. But Job does not curse God. He says, God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So in this first cycle, God wins. But Satan continues. He says, you have not yet touched his skin. Then skin for skin. And see what happens. He will begin to curse you on your face. So he was given limited authority. Go and touch his skin, but do not touch his life. So there are sores from the top of his head to the sole of his feet. He is filled and covered with these sores and looking so very ugly. And yet he does not curse God. He says, should we take from God only good things and not bad things? And not sorrow? Should we take only happiness and not sorrow? So his wife is trying to test him, but he stands the test. So here the prologue gets over and transition takes place. In this transition, three friends will appear in the picture, and there begin the whole dialogue session, which ends in chapter 42, and finally there is one more narration, that is restoration of all that Job had lost. So in the dialogue section, what happens? First, the arguments by the friends. What is their argument? They had 3 statements to make. First statement is, suffering is the consequence of sin. Second statement, Job is suffering. Third statement is a conclusion, Job has sinned. This was their position. Now they are giving the solution. Job has sinned, he should repent, then God will restore. So this was the argument by the friends. Then what is Job's position? First of all, Job says, yes, I am a sinner. But my sin is not so big that it should destroy my whole property and give me this kind of source. He is a believer. Because he is a believer, he suffers more. He is very, very sensitive to God's actions in his life. He also declares himself innocent. I have not committed such big sin. He is suffering at three levels. First, spiritual suffering, that alienation from God. Where are you, God? Physical suffering, sores all over his body. Social suffering, his friends and his wife have condemned him. So therefore Job questions retribution. Retribution means that God has to come to the help of the righteous one and make sure that he is retributed, or Job wants to be vindicated, to be declared right or righteous. At times Job becomes desperate. So the question of vindication is discussed. Who will vindicate Job? Only God will vindicate. He will declare him righteous or unrighteous. The friends have already declared him unrighteous, but Job says, no, I am not a sinner. When will the vindication take place? Not in the future, here and now. This is realized eschatology. That means judgment will take place here and now, not after my death. And third one, how will the vindication take place? By way of restoration. So God is giving now the answer. God's answer is twofold. First, you are only a creature, not creator. I am the creator. Were you there when I laid the foundation of the world? Do you know what happens to a particular animal when she gives the birth to a kid? I know what happens. So our perception is very limited. God's perception is very broad. The second answer is language of prophecy and contemplation. Prophecy means if this has happened, this will happen. This is conclusion, logical. Whereas the language of contemplation means you wonder at reality. You try to learn from the reality. You go deeper into reality and try to understand. So this book generally talks about suffering. How do we understand the mystery of suffering? Suffering has a disciplinary value. Suffering has a retributive value. We just saw that retribution. Suffering has a probative value. It will test your patience. It has redemptive value. It is temporary in nature. We have to only stand still in the midst of suffering. It is inevitable in its character, and it is mysterious finally. Therefore, we are vulnerable, we are scared of getting hurt. Let us face our vulnerability with less fear. This is the message of the book of Job. Now let us come to the fifth book, the book of Ben Sira. The title of the book is Ecclesiasticus. Ecclesia means church. Ecclesiasticus means belonging to the church. This book was used by the early church the most, and therefore it earned the name Ecclesiasticus. The author has left his signature in chapter 50 verse 27. His name was Jesus, son of Eliezer, son of Sirach. Therefore this book is also known as the book of Sirach. It is compiled in the year 180 in Hebrew, and later on the grandson of Sirach is translating it into Greek in the year 130 to 120 BCE. Who are the readers of this book? There are two possibilities. One is the Palestinian Jews, because it is in Hebrew originally, and second is the diaspora Jews. That means the Jews which are dispersed outside Jerusalem in Alexandria. So they are Alexandrian Jews. Nature of the book. The book is an anthology. That means it is a collection of teaching and instructions. It is very parental, exhortative and instructional. It is very patriarchal. So we can see this all the time. My son, never forget the things that I have taught you several times. Structure of the book. It has a prologue which is a translator's note. Very, very unusual, which you don't find in other books of the Bible. So just see the translator's note before we really begin the text. Then there are instructions on various topics. There are 54 topics that the author has dealt with. Issues connected with family life, duties of children towards their parents, duties of parents towards their children, care of the children, worries of the father, like chapter 42, 9 to 14, or relating to women, chapter 9, 1 to 9, respect for elders, mourning for the dead, etc. Important virtues such as stability, friendship, thoughtfulness, discernment, self-control, good works, companionship, freedom, taking oaths, intelligence, secrets, tongue, hospitality, health, these virtues are discussed. Caution against vices such as pride, jealousy, greed, poverty is considered as a vice, affliction, rumors, cunningness, adultery, adulterous woman, quarrels, inequality, and anger. These are various vices which are discussed. And issues connected with religious life of Israel, prayer of Israel, fear of the Lord, faith in God, God's greatness, and curses for the wicked, etc. Then the third section is praise of God for nature, chapter 42 to chapter 43. They will discuss about sun, moon, stars, rainbow, and other wonders in the nature. Then praise of ancestors. There are 27 ancestors of Israel which are discussed by this book. So 44 to 50, this section will talk about the patriarchs including Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Then priests like Aaron and Phinehas, judges like Joshua and Caleb, then prophets like Moses, Nathan, Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, 12 minor prophets, all, and kings like David, Hezekiah, Josiah, etc. Then heroes of restoration like Zerubbabel, Joshua, and Nehemiah. Simon the high priest, because the book was just written in those days, he is given special treatment in this book. And finally the book ends with appendix, chapter 51, verses 1 to 30, where there is a thanksgiving to God and there is a poem on wisdom. So the book of Ben Sira is conventional wisdom, trying to tell us that tradition also has a lot of things to offer to us. Go through this book and you will enjoy the wisdom that the sage Ben Sira is sharing with us. Shalom, peace.